So I've come to realize for myself when I'm trying to learn from another painter, like someone more advanced than me, I find it more helpful to ask why they're doing something opposed to how they're doing something. All right, welcome to Paint Coach. If you're new to the channel, my name is Chris Fornatero and I help thousands of students every single month get better at painting through my online courses and tutorials. I want to kind of talk about what guides me through a portrait painting because I get a lot of people asking me like, how do you do this? How do you do this? And those are good questions and you are going to get good answers and that will help you. But I think it's also is really important to understand why a painter or an artist is doing a certain thing and what is guiding them. So that's why I want to talk about like what is guiding me through a portrait, because I feel like a lot of my students don't fully understand or know what is guiding me. Take this portrait that I did, for example, of Kevin Bacon from A Few Good Men. A lot of people would think that the photo is the sole thing guiding you. You're looking at the photo and the photo is going to tell you what to do. The photo will give you information that you need for sure, but I've always felt that you need to fill yourself with other information that you can then call on to work with the reference, whether it's from life or a photo. There's certain things that if you know that are in your mind that you've practiced and that you understand will act as a guide through the painting. So what I mean is like when I first start a painting, I am not looking at his eyes, his nostrils, his lips. I'm not looking at like this little bright highlight or like little hairs or his ears or anything like that. All I'm focused on is trying to communicate this. And now this is from planesofthehead.com. You've probably seen my Planes of the Head model. I feel like every portrait painter has that from John Asaro. This is another one that they sell, and it's just kind of the overall egg shape of the head. And that's what I'm trying to, like, when I'm first blocking it in right here, I'm just trying to organize light and shadow as if it was just this simple. You know, because you look at this and you have features and you got all this stuff going on. But I always feel like it's just so helpful just to start simple and just say like, okay, you know, this is the shadow, this is the light, and then the head keeps curving back because, you know, it's a sphere, it's like an egg, and so it's going to continue to get darker again. And that's what I've done here. I'm not worrying about being messy. I'm not worrying about paint blending in together. In fact, like I kind of want it in a lot of areas. And I'm using a big brush. I'm being very general and very big with this. And you can just see like how much surface area I cover. And this is like right at the beginning of the painting. I get a lot of people asking me like, how do you do a full portrait painting in a sitting? And, you know, granted, this is just, I don't know, I call these studies. I did this one in about an hour and a half. I maybe worked on it a little bit more, probably for like another 20 minutes. So let's just say like a little under 2 hours, I was able to do this. And people are like, you know, how do you do that? And I feel like a big part of it is what guides me. What is guiding me is not just the photo, it's these other things that I'm going to talk about. So understanding what this video is about will help you paint faster, and it'll also help you paint smarter. And so like after I kind of get the general gist of this, then I move on to something a little more specific. So here's another like Planes of the Head. It's very simple. There's very few planes, but that's all I'm worrying about right now. Like that's what I'm letting guide me. Like I'm looking at the photo and I'm trying to find this. You know, I always say try and work easy to hard, and I feel like this is working easy to hard, you know, finding these big shapes, finding these big planes, because, you know, finding the big planes is going to make it easier to find the smaller planes, which is going to make it easier to find where the feature's on, and so on and so forth. So you can see here, like I've started to do, I'm going to zoom in just a little bit here. I've started to get a little more specific. I've pushed the highlight here in the center a little bit more, which has created more form. Like, you know, the form was reading to a degree here, but putting in that light, it's gonna, you know, read a lot more. You know, and things just like putting in this little highlight there, even though it's rough and it needs to be finessed, we've already started kind of creating that brow bone, which isn't in this model necessarily. It's in the next one I'm going to show you, but this is what I'm trying to focus on. Is I'm trying to focus on, like, for instance, with features, just the three planes of the nose here: a light, a mid-tone, and a dark, and then the bottom is shadowed. You know, I'm looking at the photo, but I have this in my mind, and I'm trying to translate the photo into this. It's kind of a way of of thinking about it. You can see, for example, like I don't even bother painting the mouth. I'm just painting right over it. All I'm thinking about are like these three planes right here that create the muzzle of the mouth, which is the same down here with the chin, these different planes. I tried to light this similar to what I thought this was lit, but I'm not a Hollywood cinematographer, so I'm probably not gonna be able to light it exactly. Um, but don't be afraid to do this. And I get people, like a lot of people probably look at this and are afraid, like, well, how am I going to paint the mouth on top of that? A lot of that just has to do with your ability to manipulate the paint, handle the paint, knowing how to work thin to thick, using the right brushes. I feel like I've made a good amount of videos on that. But if you want to see like this full painting tutorial, it is on my Patreon page. You can do a free trial for 7 days if you just want to go in and see like how I physically layered the paint and everything for this. But just, you know, kind of coming back, you can see like this dark shape, very similar to that dark shape right there. You know, it's in the photo. You can see in the photo there's a shadow right there, but, you know, a lot of people would probably kind of miss that direct dark like that, that distinct dark shape. And I always say, like at the beginning, it's okay to be very exaggerated with these shapes. And even with the hair, what is guiding me is not every little individual hair. What's guiding me is the overall form. I'm thinking, okay, if this hair, if this was like a statue of Kevin Bacon, like this all would be, he's got this great flat top going. It's like this would just be like all one plane, and then it turns and it becomes flat on the top, hence flat top. And that's catching different light. And so that's kind of like all I'm trying to do here is just communicate, okay, this is one value, and then there's a plane change where it goes from what I call, you know, a wall to a shelf. Like I feel like with planes, a lot of times, you know, it's like either a wall or a shelf, which is like the top part of the plane. Shelves tend to catch more light. So like that's all that's what's guiding me right now with the hair. It's not individual hairs. It's that, and also, it doesn't have to right now, but a lot of soft edges. I'm letting paint blend in with other paint. I'm letting the paint of the skin blend in with the paint of the hair because I know that having that soft edge is going to communicate hair. Again, that's probably not like super obvious looking at the photo because when you look at the photo, you think, okay, like there's this hair and there's a skin. They're two separate things. But when you know that using soft edges allows you to communicate hair, that's going to guide you into how you paint the hair, not just what you see in the photo. So if you're looking at this and like wondering like how I got these skin tones, I get asked that a lot. Like, how do you mix up skin tones? I actually offer a free lesson on mixing skin tones. I talk about the colors I like to have on my palette and kind of my mindset and how I go about mixing any skin tone. If you would like to get that, there's a link to it in the description of this video. Okay, so moving down here, I felt that I had developed, you know, the area around the eyes. You can see I have, like, I've got the eye sockets, I got the eyelids and everything. So I felt comfortable placing the eyes in here. I don't always place them, this early on, but I felt like I developed them enough. And just talking about the eyes. So now this is like kind of what I'm thinking. I'm trying to find these more subtle plane shifts. Like even things like, you see how this is lighter and that gets a little darker because it starts sloping down. I try and communicate that, like this is lighter, then it starts to get a little darker there. I'm starting to finesse my planes more, and I'm getting more specific where they are. Like look, coming back to, remember how like crude that was in the previous one? It was just like two brush marks. Now I've started to finesse it a little bit. I'm working it, I'm molding it. Certain areas are still very underdeveloped, like down here, like very harsh, still inaccurate. It needs work, but I was just kind of like focusing more on the light side. Again, letting this guide me. Like I had moved on from the previous simple planes. I was like, okay, I feel like I got the big planes, figured out. Let's start massaging this more. Let's start molding it more specifically. And when you understand these planes and even like the smaller planes within these, like in the features, for example, just this eye, like understanding the planes of the eye, like how there's 1, 2, 3, and then the bottom tends to be 1 and 2. And, depending on your light source, like the light source is coming from the left, so it's just going to influence how light or dark these are. I mean, this one's like tucked into the eye socket, so this is darker, then gets a little lighter, and then a little darker as it gets away from the light. And just being able to communicate that, sometimes all it is all you need to do is just put in like a little lighter stroke right there, and all of a sudden your eye has dimensions. And that's not something you weren't guided necessarily by the photo by that. At least I wasn't. Like, I was guided by what I know about the structure of the eye, and knowing that the top eyelid has 3 planes, the bottom has 2. Okay, another thing is just picking up on common things. Like, there's always this flat plane right there a lot of times. I feel like a lot of people miss that, and you can see like I already started kind of communicating there. It's like this flat plane, and then it starts coming out like that, at the top of the mouth. So I started communicating things like that, and there's just a whole lot of form also down in the mouth that I've started to form more, just like the basic 3 planes at the top there, all in the chin. It's very crude now. It's like 3 simple values: dark, mid or light, mid-tone, and dark. I mean, there's nothing even going on in the dark right now, but I've kind of started to put in the mouth a little bit because I felt comfortable with how much I've developed here. And just look at this, like how subtle this value shift is. It's a little bit darker. It's a little more exaggerated than this, but you necessarily wouldn't have picked that up looking at the photo here. It's not, very obvious that there's a value shift right here. All right, so coming down into this one, I'm kind of leaving this behind. Like, I'm still thinking about these planes, but now I'm being guided by other things, more subtle things, such as like the background. You can see I changed the background, and why I decided to change that was that I felt like this was too light. I wanted his face to seem more lit up. I wanted the light side of his face to, just seem brighter. And I knew that my values were correct in the face. And so what I did was I pushed it a little darker. And you can see, like, by the end painting, pushing that darker really makes that pop. I didn't see that color necessarily. I guess see a little bit here, but that wasn't something I was guided by the photo. That was guided by my knowledge of values and knowing how a dark value would play as a background in this portrait. And then by the end here, what's guided me a lot of the times towards the ends of the painting are edges, and just getting, there's a lot of, in this part, like a lot of harsher edges and things like right there, and just getting transitions to be a little bit smoother if I need to put values in between, dark and light, like a value that's in between to soften that transition. Also, just still manipulating form. Like, at this point I am guided by the photo more. Like, for example, this chin is just too big, and by the end here I shortened it a little bit. Like, I was like, okay, his chin's looking too big, let's shorten that a little bit. Like, I got the form of the chin right, just need to shorten it a little bit. Little details like the nostrils, and just defining the form of the nose more clearly now that I've figured out the big planes of the nose. But let's take a closer look at the final painting here. So this is the final painting, and I just want to kind of point out some things that I feel like most students wouldn't pick up on. One, edges. I love talking about edges. And a lot of people, myself included, when they first start out painting portraits, struggle like painting short hair, like buzz cut hair like this. Kind of the trick to that is kind of mixing the color of the skin with the color of the hair, and having a very soft transition, like really letting that paint blend and fade together. That's one thing. Say, like, anytime there's hair anywhere, just understand there's probably going to be soft edges. There's no harsh edge on this hair anywhere. I kind of let the wet paint blend in a little bit to the background. Same with like the eyebrows. I mean, look how soft that is. It's also a lot lighter here, and then darker in the eyebrow there as it gets away from the light. Zooming on these eyes, you can see a little dark plane, little light plane, dark. See that little dark? It's so small I can't even draw over top of it. Gets a little lighter, and then the lightest right there. With eyes, the color of the eyes, a lot of times in photos, it's hard to see what's going on here. So you have to be guided off of your knowledge of the eye. And the catch light is on the top left here, which makes sense because the light, that's the, this is just a reflection of the light they have shining on him that's hitting the left side of his face here and gets darker as it goes that way. And with the catch light, when you have a light and you get that little reflection, if you go just to the direct opposite side, that area is going to be the brightest of color, because what's happening is the light is going through the eye and coming out right there. And so you can kind of always count on that. Even if you can't see it, you can always count on that. Same thing's kind of happening in this eye as well. Just a lot of the typical form. I mean, look, 3 basic planes happening right there, 3 value shifts, the plane shift right there, subtle getting darker as the head wraps around there. On this other side, I actually took some of this color when I was putting it in and put it in here because I knew this plane here is facing away, just like how this plane got darker because it was facing away from the light. I knew this was facing away too, and I wanted to connect it to the background. And so I just brushed it in, like wet into wet paint there, brushed it in and kind of have that cohesion between background and subject. Look at a lot of soft edges in the eyebrows there. Probably could develop his eyebrows a little bit more. The lips, a lot of times I'll see people get too much hard edges on the lips. They'll be like that and they'll almost seem outlined. Always look, if you look a lot of great portrait painters like John Singer Sargent or something, you'll see how much they'll let the skin blend right into the top of the lip there. Also, corners of the mouth tend to be cooler, grayer, and softer. So I try and implement that when I can. So yeah, I know I've kind of thrown a lot of information at you, but I just wanted to really let you know what guides me through a portrait. And now that you can kind of take some of these things or whatever resonated with you in this video and work on it yourself, whether it's the planes of the head, whether it's edges, whether it's, the color zones of the face, which I didn't even really get into that much about how this is going to be more pink. Up here is going to tend to be a little warmer. Around the eyes can be a little bit cooler. Around the mouth can tend to be a little cooler or grayer because of facial or stubble. There wasn't a lot here. I probably could have emphasized it more. There wasn't a lot in this photo reference because they probably had makeup on him. There's a lot of portrait painters that when they paint from a live model, they'll ask for them not to have any makeup on so they can pick up on these things. They can pick up on the redder cheeks, redder nose, corners of the mouth being gray around the mouth tend to be cooler or grayer. Again, if you look at John Singer Sargent's portraits, you'll see those colors playing together really, really well. But hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. If you would like to see what I'm painting on a daily basis, you can follow me on Instagram at Forza43. I'm Chris Fornatero, here telling you to go get painting.